Welcome to this Bone Matter session on financial support through welfare benefits for people affected by osteoporosis. I'm Rose and I'm the Head of Information and Support here at the Royal Osteoporosis Society.
And I'm Sarah. I'm an osteoporosis specialist nurse and a clinical advisor at the Royal Osteoporosis Society.
And we're delighted to be joined on this session today by benefits expert David Samson from the charity Turn to Us. David has over 30 years experience in welfare benefits, including giving lots of face-to-face advice, and he's the lead for the Turn to Us's online benefits calculator. So welcome to you, David. Thank you so much for joining us. And would you like to start off by just explaining briefly to us what Turn to Us can offer?
Yeah, sure. Hello, everyone. So Turn to Us helps people in financial need gain access to welfare benefits, charitable grants and other financial help online, by phone, and we work a lot with other organisations as well who use our tools.
Thank you, David. David's going to be talking to us about how the benefit system can support you as people affected by osteoporosis, and then we're going to discuss some common scenarios that people with osteoporosis might find themselves in, and we're going to be answering some of your common questions.
And we know that we're all living through some very hard times economically at the moment, and that many of you are going to be worried about the cost of living, especially over the winter. So we also hear from people who feel quite confused by the benefit system, making it difficult to know what and how to claim. So that's why we've teamed up with the benefits experts at Turn to Us to help us talk through what support you could be entitled to through welfare benefits. So David, would you like to start us off by telling us a bit about the different sorts of benefits that are available?
Okay, well, the benefit system, there's quite a lot of benefits to get your head around, and there are different sorts, and we'll talk you through in this recording in a bit more detail. So this is just a kind of an overview. So basically there are different types of benefits. So there are benefits which are dependent on how much income you've got coming in. That's what's called means tested benefits. And a typical example would be universal credit for people of working age, and pension credit for people of pension age, and housing benefits, which is to help pay with your rent for people of pension age. Universal credits replace six means tested benefits, such as income support, job seekers allowance, income-based employment and support allowance, and tax credits. And those benefits it replaced are called legacy benefits, and some people are on those benefits still. And then there's benefits which don't depend on your income, so benefits which are because you might have severe disabilities, for instance, such as personal independence payments or attendance allowance, and also help which you can get through your national insurance payments, such as your state pension or contributory employment and support allowance and job seekers allowance. And then there's also payments you can get because you're off sick or you're on maternity leave, which are called statutory payments, such as statutory sick pay and statutory maternity pay.
Thanks, David. Great introduction. It's very complicated, isn't it? So I think it's going to be very useful to work through. What we're going to do is take some common scenarios, so how you might find yourself as someone with osteoporosis, and take you through some of the specific benefits that will be relevant for you, and answer your questions. So let's fire ahead with number one. So our first scenario, we do get lots of questions from people who have been diagnosed with the condition osteoporosis. So they don't have any painful, disabling fractures, any broken bones, but they have just been told that they are in that osteoporosis category. I'm thinking of someone here of pension age, struggling, not having enough money, but no specific pain or disability. David, can you tell us a little bit, first of all, about someone in this situation? Are there any benefits you're going to get just because you have got osteoporosis?
Okay, so many of the benefits you get are because you might have a disability and pain which stops your daily living life, or you need help with your mobility, or you can't work. But just having a diagnosis of osteoporosis doesn't entitle you to benefits, I'm afraid. Some benefits you can access are just because you're on a low income, such as pension credit for people of pension age, council tax support for help with your council tax, housing benefits for people of pension age, and people of working age will get universal credit with help with their low income.
Thank you, David. And can you tell us, can people of pension age access universal credit?
Well, this is a kind of an interesting point, is that universal credit is intended for working age people. However, if you're in a couple and one of you is over pension age and the other is under pension age, by virtue of the fact that one of you is under pension age, then you would claim universal credit rather than pension credit in that situation.
I see, thank you. Great, well, I think we're going to move on to our next scenario then, which is we're talking about somebody now who's of working age, so someone under the age of 65 who's got osteoporosis, but they've also got fractures and they've got pain and some level of disability from those fractures, which means that they can't work any longer. So what kind of benefits could someone in that scenario claim?
Okay, so if they're severely disabled, if they live in England, Wales or Northern Ireland, they may be able to get a benefit called Personal Independence Payment, or PIP. If they're living in Scotland, the equivalent of PIP is a new benefit called Adult Disability Payment. And these benefits are for help with daily living tasks or help with your mobility. If they're on a low income, they may also be able to get universal credit if their income and savings are low enough. And you can be in or out of work to get universal credit. The Turn to Us benefit calculator will be able to tell you if you can claim universal credit. If you're not able to work due to your disability, you may be able to claim statutory sick pay from your employer, or may be able to get a benefit called New Style Employment and Support Allowance if you've paid sufficient national insurance contributions. And that can be quite important if your income or savings mean you can't get universal credit. A lot of people are still on benefits from the old system, what I said earlier, legacy benefits. So they might be getting income-related ESA for their disability, or because they can't work, or if they are able to look for work, income-based job seekers allowance, and they may be able to get the old housing benefit. So these are benefits that people are already on and can't make a new claim for, but they might be able to get extra additions for those benefits. So it's always worth people doing a benefit check on the benefit calculator.
Thank you. That's really helpful. I think, in fact, you may have answered the next question. This was one about savings. So someone of that age saying if they've got savings, can they claim the benefits? I think what you're saying is yes for some of the benefits and no for the others. Okay,
well, with savings, if you're working age, for instance, with universal credit, if you have more than £16,000 in savings or capital, then you cannot claim universal credit. And if you have less than £6,000, this won't affect your benefits at all. But if you have between £6,000 and £16,000, it will reduce the amount you're entitled to. And that's a similar picture with housing benefit and council tax support. With pension credit, its savings rules are a bit more generous. I think we're going to be talking about pension credit a bit later.
Yeah, I think so. Yes.
Yeah. So with pension credit, just to flag that it's kind of worth doing a benefit check, even if you've got some savings because the rules are more generous and there's no upper capital limit as such, although some savings will affect above 10,000 will affect the amount you get.
Thank you. And we were talking, you mentioned earlier contributory benefits, and so a question here around, will I have had to have made contributions to get the benefits? And I guess that depends on which one we're looking at.
Yes, depends which benefit you're looking at. So if you've paid national insurance, you will get some. You might qualify for certain specific benefits, such as New Style Employment and Support Allowance or New Style Job Seekers Allowance, and they can be important if, say, your partner might have a higher income, and it might enable you to get some benefit. We've helped with that with your situation, because contributory benefits, your income by and large won't affect the amount you get.
Thank you, David. Really helpful. So moving on to our next scenario then, we're talking about a very typical situation, which we hear a lot through places like our helpline, which is where someone who is retired, so over the age of 65, and again has painful fractures, which are often spinal fractures, and is really struggling with daily tasks, so daily living. Can you tell us what sort of benefits might be available here in this scenario?
So there is a benefit which is called attendance allowance, which is that's a non-means tested benefit. So your savings and your income won't affect attendance allowance, and it's a benefit which is paid for people who have a disability, who require either attention or supervision from someone else in order to be able to do tasks such as getting in and out of bed, dressing yourself, washing yourself, those sorts of things. You don't actually have to be receiving the support to get it. It's based on whether you need the support. So whether you're getting whether you have a carer or not, it depends on whether you need that attention or supervision to qualify for it, and you have to be over pension age to get it.
Key benefit for many of our audiences.
Yeah, and so obviously you might also be on a low income, and so again, housing benefits, if you need help with your rent, or pension credit, which is a means tested benefit, which can also entitle you to a lot of other things as well, such as the TV license now. And there's also the cost of living support as well, if you can get pension credit in that situation. And as I was saying before, if you got even if you've got a lot of savings, I would suggest you do a benefit check to see if you can get that.
Thank you. That's really helpful, and I think that's such an important point you made there. And we hear from many older people who particularly around attendance allowance, have just no idea that that's available for them, and simply, as you say, because of their situation. So great to hear you emphasising the importance of that one.
Thank you. And we actually had a couple of questions submitted from our members who are in this sort of scenario. So if I might ask you those, David. So first of all, we had Jenny, who wanted to know whether she can get help to buy a mobility scooter as she struggles to get around because of pain and disability. And then in a related point, Maureen also asked us whether she can get any help with taxi fares to travel around as she's disabled, particularly to the hospital.
Right. Okay. So regarding the motor scooter, if you are getting the enhanced rate of mobility component of personal independence payment or adult disability payment, or the higher rate mobility component of disability living allowance, then you could qualify for a motor scooter through what's known as the Motability Scheme, where your payments of your mobility component go towards the vehicle. There are some people over pension age who claimed PIP or ADP or DLA before they reach pension age and are still getting those benefits beyond pension age. Unfortunately, there's no mobility component within attendance allowance. So it means sometimes people won't qualify for help for the scooter, and therefore they have to look for other means to help to get that support with their mobility. So we have a grant search tool on the Turn to Us website, which you can see if there's any charities which will help you pay for the scooter. And there's also obviously local authority support. There's some kind of community transport schemes, so always look on your local authority website to see if there's any support in your local area in that situation. Regarding the taxi fares, you should also check if you can get any help through what are called health benefits. So that's similar to the help you can get with prescriptions or dental treatments through the NHS charges. So the NHS website should tell you whether you can get any help with reasonable transport costs for appointments to hospital. So yeah, so there's kind of a limit to what they will pay for, but you have to show that it is reasonable. And
I know that sometimes hospitals can offer hospital transport if people are in a difficult situation and not able to get to the hospital. So it's also probably worth checking with your local hospital as well to see if they have any schemes like that in place.
Yeah, so lots of detail there. Thank you, David. That's really helpful. I've got a question from someone sort of asking if something happens very suddenly. Sometimes when people get a fracture, there's acute pain and the situation changes fast and they suddenly feel, I wonder if there's any help out there. I just wondered if there are any sort of immediate benefits you can get, or does it just take an enormous amount of time to get the benefit to come through? Any advice there at all?
Yeah, well, benefits often do take a long time to be processed. So with universal credit, for instance, you can be waiting 5 weeks in some cases for your first payment. You can apply for what's known as a short-term advance if you're claiming universal credit or pension credit. However, this is like a loan, which is deducted from future payments of your benefit, usually over a maximum of 24 months. So it's worth bearing that in mind. There's also other support you may want to look into if you're in an emergency situation. So your local authority might provide something which is known as local welfare assistance if you're particularly vulnerable.
Thank you, David. And another question we've had here is someone is asking us, they've heard that you can register as disabled to entitle you to other supports. Is this right? And what sort of supports could that entitle you to?
Okay, so registering as disabled won't enable you to get more benefits through the welfare benefit system, but it might help you with some schemes locally. So it's always worth checking this out on your local authority website in terms of what concessions are available if you register as disabled, and they will also tell you. So for instance, you might be get certain concessions on theatres, education and training and stuff like this. So it's always worth checking these things out, and the local authority will also tell you how to apply to be on the register.
That's great. Thank you. Really helpful, David. Okay, we'll go on to the last scenario. We wanted to talk to you about someone who is, so this particular person is looking after her mum in her late 70s with spinal fractures, can't care for herself as a result. Is there anything she can claim as a carer? So you could tell us a bit about that.
Right, so she's the person caring, yes?
Yes, that's right.
Yes, so there is a benefit for carers, which is called carers allowance, and you can claim this if the person you're caring for is getting a qualifying disability benefit, so which is attendance allowance, the daily living component of PIP or adult disability payment. As well as caring full time, the person you're providing 35 hours care, but there is an earnings limit to carers allowance. So if you're working, sometimes you may not be able to get carers allowance if you're earning above a certain limit, but you should do a benefit check. Our benefit calculator tells you whether you can get carers allowance or not. As well as carers allowance, there's a couple of points which are worth bearing in mind. So there's something, if you're claiming universal credit, there's a carer element of universal credit. So you can get this whether or not you're claiming carers allowance, and your earnings won't come into it with the care element of universal credit. So you can be working and get the care element of universal credit. It's often worth making a claim for carers allowance as well in certain situations. So if you're on pension credit, for instance, you can get an extra carer element of pension credit. So sometimes you can't claim you can't get carers allowance and retirement pension at the same time. But if you make a claim for carers allowance, although you won't actually get it, you will see an increase in your overall benefits as a result of the carer element in the pension credit. And there's also, if you're on getting any of the old benefits under the old system, you might be able to get an extra addition as well as a result of claiming carers allowance. So it's always worth checking that out. And as I say, the calculator will tell you whether you can get carers allowance and whether or not you'll be better off by doing so.
Fantastic. Thank you, David. And we will be looking at your benefits calculator soon with a bit of a demonstration.
Yeah.
And but for now, we had a couple of final common queries which we often get asked about welfare benefits and support, which we hoped you might be able to answer for us. So first of all, we often get asked by people if there's any help available for form filling, which can be quite complex, as I'm sure you know.
Yes. So it depends on the kind of benefit, really. If you're claiming universal credit, then the Citizens Advice provides something which is called the Help to Claim scheme. And if you contact the Citizens Advice, they can help you with that. You can apply for pension credit over the phone if you don't know, if you're struggling with doing the form yourself. But overall, there is a lack of help available through local advice agencies due to funding cuts. So the days have gone, fortunately, where you could go along to your local advice centre and get help with claims. Regarding personal independence payment or adult disability payments or attendance allowance, then the forms can be a bit onerous, particularly the form which asks you about your disability. So it's always worth keeping a diary with you of how your disability affects you, so that when it comes to answering the questions, you've got you're very, very clear on what support you need. And it's also worth going on to finding out as much information about the criteria for qualifying for these benefits. So, for instance, we have information on our website about personal independence payments, and this enables you to give all the information about how your disability affects you, which is accurate and relevant. So it's important to to tell people exactly what support you need, and to give them a clear and accurate picture.
That's really helpful. And perhaps just an extra point there, it's very frustrating, isn't it, that there isn't much help available, but presumably there are sort of local schemes in some areas. I know we locally have a kind of a very good volunteer system, so there might be help out there in your local area. It's worth making inquiries because it's such a complex system, isn't it?
Yes,
that's really, those tips were really helpful, I think, as well. Just a question on the same theme, really. What if you get turned down? Because presumably many people do. What happens next, and is there an appeals process?
Yes. So with most of the benefits, you will be able to make an appeal. So the appeal system for most of the benefits, you have to ask them for a review first, and you usually have a month to do that. So it's a month to make a review, and the name for the review is called a mandatory reconsideration. And you ask them to look at the decision again, outlining why you think the decision is wrong. If you get turned down for your mandatory reconsideration, they will give you a mandatory reconsideration notice, which allows you to appeal to the tribunal service for an independent appeal. Housing benefit is the exception to the rule, where you can ask for an appeal without having to ask for a review of the decision.
Thank you, David. And another question from me, which we know that the people that we're supporting at the moment are very concerned about the rises in the cost of living, and particularly how people are going to pay their energy bills in this environment. Is there anything that you could mention that people could get support with these costs?
Yeah, so we do have a cost of living page on the Turn to Us website, which gives you the basic information of the schemes which are available. So the £400 help for everyone off their fuel bills, and the £650 available for people on the lowest income are getting certain benefits such as universal credit and pension credit. And then there's also the extra help for disabled people of £150, and the extra help for people over the age of 66, where they get an increase in their winter fuel payments of £300. So we kind of outline the general help that's been announced by the government on our website. I think it's always useful to get, we're not specialists in the area of energy advice, so our website links to where you can get other information on this. It's also worth looking at the Money Saving Experts site for more information as well on the help that's available related to energy and cost of living.
Thank you, David. Really helpful, and we'll be signposting you at the end of this film to other resources and to your website, so that's really helpful. Right, we're now going to move on to have a look at a demonstration of the Turn to Us benefit calculator. So this is a free online tool that anyone can use to find out what they can be entitled to. David, would you like to take us through the calculator and show us how it works?
Yes, so you can access the calculator via the Turn to Us website. This is the front page of the website. There's various access points to it. So this is one access point for the Get Support panel. And you click on the benefits calculator and it takes you to the front page. Benefits calculator. So if you're using it for the first time, you go here. You can always return to old calculations through entering the reference number and the postcode, your postcode. So I'm going to do a very simple, straightforward scenario. So if someone is getting, say, pension credit, so this is if you're getting a state pension. I'm not going to tell you about every question, but obviously your benefits affected by whether you've got a partner or not, how old you are. So let's assume this person is not getting any benefits other than their retirement pension. They're disabled. They're not getting any disability benefits at present. They don't have a carer.
So this could be someone who has recently had some severe fractures, potentially.
Yes. No. £50 a week. So they're in like council accommodation, for instance, 1 bedroom. Now single, living on their own. Let's assume they're in a Band B council tax property and they're retired. So let's assume they're getting the full state pension. They get a very modest occupational pension. So I'll give them £8,000 in savings. This takes you through to the results, and on their present situation, they can get housing benefits, £140.85 for help with their rent. And they, as well as their existing benefits, plus also council tax support. It tells them there that if you have a disability, you may be able to read more information about attendance allowance if you think you fit the criteria. There's various features on the calculator. So we have an in-work calculator which explains how their benefits are affected if they want to increase or change their hours, work hours, or they want to start work, which is here as well. It's just a very quick tool. So I'll just stop sharing.
Thank you so much. Thank you from me too, David. It's been so interesting. And thank you to all of you, our audience, for listening. We hope this session has been useful. We know and understand that it's a very complex area and you may still need further support. We're including lots of other links to other relevant information alongside this session. So we hope you'll find it useful too. Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Goodbye.